we're comparing what 100,000 euros versus 400,000 euros actually buys you on the Amalfi Coast. We found 8 real properties across this coastline, from affordable apartments to sea view homes that look straight out of a film. And some of these prices genuinely caught me off guard. On the Amalfi Coast, you're not just paying for square meters. The views, the terraces, the location, the lifestyle people spend years dreaming about. That's what the price tag reflects. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly where the value starts to shift and which property delivers the most for the money. Let's get into it. Property 1, 110,000 euros, around $128,000. Vietri sul Mare sits at the eastern gateway to the entire coastline, where the famous ceramic tiled church domes first appear, where painted facades begin, and where the sea opens up below the cliffs in a way that stops you mid-sentence. Positioned where the Gulf of Salerno meets the start of the Costiera Amalfitana proper, it's close enough to Salerno for real urban access, and far enough from it to feel like you've already arrived somewhere entirely different. For that price, the listing describes a restored ground floor apartment of approximately 45 square meters, roughly 484 square feet, presented in good condition and described as suited to a holiday home, an investment, or a compact coastal residence. The layout covers a bright living area with a kitchenette, 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom, and attached to all of that is a private terrace, which on this coast is never just a detail. The terrace is where the day happens. Individual heating appears in the listing too, and that matters more than it sounds because it means October and March become usable rather than miserable. Ground floor entry removes the stair problem entirely. Easy in, easy out, no lift required. Now, 45 square meters is not generous, and there's no point pretending otherwise, but it's a real, livable space described as restored and ready to use. What makes the price surprising is the address itself. Vietri sul Mare carries actual infrastructure, shops, cafes, pharmacies, regular bus connections east towards Salerno and west along the coast. You can live here, not just visit on weekends. At 110,000 euros, this sets the floor for everything that follows. The next property adds meaningful space and a dimension this one doesn't have. Property 2, 135,000 euros, approximately $158,000. About 1 kilometer inland from the center of Vietri sul Mare sits Molina di Vietri, the quieter residential face of the same municipality. A hillside pocket where locals actually live year-round, with the coast close enough to feel and the motorway close enough to use. The listing flags the position as strategic, near Salerno, near Cava de' Tirreni, with major road connections intact and the coastline still within easy reach. The apartment occupies the mezzanine floor and measures approximately 55 square meters, about 592 square feet, 10 more than Property 1, with the listing describing good condition throughout. 3 rooms make up the layout: an entrance living room, a spacious double bedroom with balcony access, a habitable kitchen, and a bathroom fitted with a bathtub. Individual natural gas heating is noted, and that single detail transforms this into a more comfortable year-round proposition than a comparable property without it. A balcony and a bathtub are small things that become large things once you're actually living somewhere, and the listing adds something worth paying close attention to. Because the entrance living room runs generously sized, there's a realistic option to relocate the kitchen into that space and open it up, which would free the original kitchen room to function as a second bedroom. That's a reconfiguration, not a renovation, a very different thing financially and logistically. And it means this apartment can operate as a 1-bedroom, or with some rearranging, as a 2-bedroom, for investors thinking about rental yield, or for families who need that extra room. That flexibility carries real financial weight. The location works harder than its price implies too. The motorway puts Salerno minutes away and Naples Airport under an hour out, which means a remote worker, a couple splitting time between Italy and somewhere else, or someone renting to professionals as well as holiday visitors, all find this address genuinely practical. 10 extra square meters, a balcony, a bathtub, natural gas heating, and a layout that adapts for 25,000 euros more than property 1. Clean value. The third property, though, takes a completely different direction, and the shift is worth feeling. Before we get there, picture what the Amalfi Coast actually feels like away from the main tourist drag. Much of what makes this coastline extraordinary isn't the postcard towns. It's the small villages tucked into the hillsides above them, connected by ancient mule paths and stone staircases, where the air runs noticeably cooler in summer, where the views often stretch further than anything visible from the road below, and where almost nobody is selling anything. The silence up there carries a different quality entirely. Late afternoon light hits the stone at an angle you don't get anywhere else. None of that costs extra. It comes with the address. Keep that in mind. Property 3. 138,000 euros. Approximately $161,000. Albori sits above the coast within the municipality of Vietri sul Mare, a genuinely quiet village where the sea shows up below you between the rooftops, and where the tourists crowding the towns beneath it are paying tour operators to approximate this view for an afternoon. Stone houses, narrow paths, working terraces, and a silence that hasn't been overwritten by anything. If you haven't heard of Albori, that's somewhat the point. 60 square meters, around 646 square feet. On the ground floor, restored and described in the listing as ready to move into in good second-hand condition. 2 rooms make up the interior, 1 spacious bedroom and 1 bathroom, and what separates this from the first 2 properties is a dedicated kitchen, a proper separate room for cooking and eating, rather than a kitchenette folded into the living area. That separation changes how daily life feels in a way that's hard to overstate. Ground floor access removes the stair problem entirely, which matters for groceries, luggage, and general practicality. The listing notes no heating system currently installed, and that's a genuine consideration for anyone planning autumn or winter stays. Not a reason to walk away, but a real cost to budget for. The energy rating lands at G, standard for older Italian buildings of this type, and no major renovations appear in the listing beyond that heating gap. Here's what 138,000 euros actually buys. A restored apartment in an authentic Italian hill village, surrounded by some of the most spectacular coastal scenery in Europe, where the character of the place remains intact. 15 more square meters than property 1, a proper separate kitchen, a restored interior, and a location most people visiting this coast will never find. The value to character ratio here runs quietly off the chart, and for only 21,000 euros more, the lead changes for the first time, and it changes decisively. Property 4, 159,000 euros, approximately $186,000. Rado clings to the cliff top above Vietri sul Mare, with views across the Gulf of Salerno that hit you before you finished parking. Turn a corner on any narrow lane up here and the sea drops away below you in every direction, and you understand immediately why people compete for this particular stretch of hillside. A recently renovated 2-room apartment of 60 square meters, 646 square feet, with a modern finished interior, entrance hall, kitchenette, a bright dining room, and a double bedroom with a loft area built in, which adds actual volume, actual extra sleeping or storage capacity above the main floor. The bathroom comes with an anteroom, and the listing notes the possibility of installing a spa tub, which tells you the bones of the space can carry that kind of comfort. A shared balcony faces southwest with panoramic sea views, meaning the sun sets directly over the water from where you're standing. A small private room off the main space functions as either a breakfast nook or a dedicated workspace. Elevator access is noted in the listing, and here's the part that changes the calculus. The apartment is described as ready to generate rental income immediately, in a location where short-term demand along this coast is not theoretical. A renovated, light-filled apartment with a genuine sea view, elevator access, a workspace, southwest orientation, and a clifftop address in a core coastal village. All of that for under 160,000 euros. That's the new leader. Hold it in your head because Crossing into the next tier means playing a completely different game. Before we get there, it's worth spending a moment on what this coast actually is, because understanding it makes every price on this list land differently. The Amalfi Coast carries UNESCO World Heritage status, and that designation does something concrete. It actively limits new construction in ways that protect the character of every village and hillside on it. What exists here is largely what will always exist here. No new towers, no new roads carved through the cliffs, no wholesale development coming to reshape the skyline. The summers run long, warm, and genuinely crowded. Autumn turns golden, quieter, and arguably better. The water stays swimmable well into October. Vietri, Setara, Maiori, Minori, Atrani, Amalfi, Praiano, Positano, all connected by the SS 163, one of the most dramatic coastal roads anywhere in the world, plus ferries running between them through the summer season. Naples Airport sits roughly an hour from the eastern end of the coast, and Salerno, with high-speed rail linking it to Naples and Rome, sits right at the edge. The expat community exists here without having overwhelmed the local character, and this remains very much Italy. Real markets, real noise, real food, real quiet where you find it. All prices here reflect the moment of selection, listings move fast, and anyone moving forward will need to check all documents, local fees, and notary costs carefully. Now, let's cross into the higher tier, because this is where the twist arrives and everything shifts. Property 5, 415,000 euros, approximately $486,000. Conca dei Marini sits wedged between Amalfi and Positano on a dramatic cliffside shelf above the sea, one of the smallest and least commercialized communes on the entire coast. UNESCO protected, barely touched, and genuinely one of the most beautiful positions along this coastline. The steps down to the water feel like a secret, and the view from the top feels like something you earned. This property is called Casa Angelina, and the listing describes it as a well-established, profitable vacation home. Walk through it. A double bedroom with a balcony, a kitchenette, a dining area with a fully equipped kitchen, a sofa, and a bathroom. Step off the balcony onto a terrace with sun loungers, and the view stretches from Capo di Conca all the way to the Faraglioni of Capri. Additional outdoor space with sofas and a table for alfresco dining sits alongside a private garden and a storage room. A bus stop at the entrance gate connects to Amalfi and Agerola. The beach at Marina di Conca sits about 240 steps below, and Amalfi Center lands roughly 20 minutes away by public transport or car. Here's the part that separates this from a lifestyle purchase. Casa Angelina already functions as a rental. Already earning. You're not building an income stream from scratch. You're acquiring one that exists and runs. For 415,000 euros on this coast, the combination of that view, that town, and a proven rental track record makes this a serious proposition. And the next property will make you rethink what the word house means at this price point. Property 6, 450,000 euros, approximately $527,000, a detached house, a completely independent, single-family home. On the Amalfi Coast, Poggiola di Amalfi sits directly above the historic center of Amalfi, connected to it by the ancient stepped path locals have used for centuries to move between the high ground and the sea. Sunnier than the towns on the water, quieter than the coast road below, and looking down over Amalfi and the sea from an angle most visitors never see from below, the listing describes the renovation as impeccable, and the details back that up. Barrel vaults, rising over 4 meters in the double living room, anchor the space, with original architectural features preserved and celebrated, rather than stripped out, and sophisticated finishes throughout. A completely separate entrance leads into a private courtyard and terrace before you even reach the front door, which tells you something about the scale of privacy here. From the living room, one side opens to a kitchenette, and the other leads to a master bedroom and master bathroom, while an internal wooden staircase climbs to a mezzanine with a second bedroom and second bathroom. Through the courtyard sits a private garden of approximately 1,200 square meters, nearly 2,920 square feet, meticulously maintained and integrated into the surrounding hillside. That's nearly a third of an acre, Attached to a detached home with barrel vault ceilings in a village described as the most panoramic and sunniest part of Poggiola, about 130 steps from the main road connecting directly to historic Amalfi below. For architecture, privacy, outdoor space, and pure Amalfi character, this property leads the entire lineup. The lead changes here, and it stays changed. Don't walk away yet, though, because Property 7 carries something no other property on this list has. If you're finding value you didn't expect here, subscribe. We track regions like this specifically, and the next video goes even further. Property 7, 460,000 euros, approximately $538,000. Tovere sits in the hills behind Amalfi proper. Agricultural, terraced, old in the way that feels earned rather than staged, described in the listing as an ancient rural settlement that's increasingly drawing the attention of investors who've figured out that the most interesting finds on this coast often turn up in the places most people drive past. A fully furnished 2-floor home, and the first detail worth flagging is parking inside the property on the Amalfi Coast, where parking ranks as a chronic and serious problem almost everywhere you go. Just a few steps from the parking space to the porch and inside. Ground floor, a bright kitchenette, and a living room with a fireplace, an actual working fireplace, both looking out to sea, plus an independently accessed sleeping area, currently set up with bunk beds and well suited for a holiday let configuration, a full bathroom, and direct access to a private courtyard. Upper floor, a double bedroom with a private balcony, taking in views from the Gulf of Salerno all the way to Capri and the Faraglioni, and then there's the land. Approximately 2,000 square meters of it, nearly 21,130 square feet, described as a mix of olive grove, vineyard, and orchard, running across terraced Amalfi Coast hillside. That means waking up in a house that actively produces olives and grapes, with parking sorted, a fireplace for winter stays, and sea views from the living room. The listing confirms the property has hosted international guests across multiple seasons and already functions as a holiday home, which means the income infrastructure is in place alongside everything else. None of that matters as much as the land, though, because 2,000 square meters of productive terraced hillside with those crops represents an asset that doesn't lose ground the way buildings can. Comment below, olive grove and fireplace in Tovere, or what's coming next in Minori. Tell me where you land. Property 8, the finale, 485,000 euros, approximately $568,000. Minori earned the last spot deliberately because what it delivers is something most towns on this coast can't quite manage. Genuine year-round livability by actual people, not a summer resort that empties out in October and sits hollow until June. One of the few towns on the coast with a wide, flat seafront, unusual here where most shorelines run dramatic but narrow, Minori carries a history of lemon and limoncello production that gives it a working, rooted character the more famous towns have largely traded away for tourist infrastructure. Real grocery stores, real residents, the historic beach of Santa Trefimina sitting right in the center of town. That's the address. 90 square meters, around 969 square feet, spread across 2 floors, recently renovated both internally and on the facade, described in the listing as immediately habitable and turnkey, with the option to personalize over time. Ground floor, 2 bright bedrooms, a functional kitchen, and a bathroom. Upper floor, a 3rd bedroom with its own small bathroom, and a bright room that opens onto a panoramic terrace of approximately 10 square meters, facing south and west, which means natural light tracks across the front of the property from morning to evening. From one side of that terrace, the listing places the sea and the historic church of Santa Trofimina in the frame. From the other, the green hills and the Ravello promontory rise above. The seafront sits 5 minutes on foot, about 80 steps through the village. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 90 square meters, a panoramic terrace, a town with real infrastructure, sea views on one side and mountain views on the other, fully renovated and ready to use. And that last point applies to all 8 properties in this lineup. Not one requires months in a dust-filled construction site before you can actually occupy it. No money pits, no projects that turn a dream into a slow disaster. These are places you walk into. So where does that leave us? For the best value, under 160,000 euros with an actual sea view, a renovated interior in a core coastal position, Property 4 in Rado takes that tier, and it isn't particularly close. For the best combination of an already earning rental and a spectacular private coastal position, Casa Angelina in Conca dei Marini is the one. For the most architecturally distinctive single purchase on this list, a detached home with barrel vaults, nearly 12,920 square feet of private garden, and historic Amalfi at the bottom of the steps, Poggiola sits in a category by itself. And for the most complete, year-round livable package, 3 bedrooms, a real town, a real beach, real light, real views, turnkey and ready, Minori closes it out. Here's what I'll leave you with. 460,000 euros to spend today, and the choice comes down to 2 properties. On one side, the olive grove, the vineyard, the fireplace, and 21,130 square feet of productive terraced hillside in Tovere. On the other, the 3-bedroom, fully renovated, panoramic terrace apartment, 5 minutes from the seafront in Minori. Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to see where people land on that one. And if you want the next region, where this kind of value stretches even further than what you've seen today, subscribe and you won't miss it.